Paltrocast.
Well, Dirk, thank you for taking the time. Where are you dialing in from? Because I know the tour started about 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right. We're in Texas currently, in Irving near Dallas. So yeah, man, it's been a really good run so far. Bunch of great shows. Fans have been really excited to see us again. So can't complain.
You're destroying all your enemies so far?
we, as far as we know, there are no
Yeah.
survivors.
Yeah, I enjoyed looking at some of the European festival tour footage recently. Is it the same set list or similar set list that we're getting here in the States?
Well, what we've been doing is adding a lot of songs that haven't been played much or at all to our repertoire. And so every show is slightly different. There will be 2, 3, 4 songs that we didn't play the night before and vice versa. We've basically made like 3 master set lists that we work off of, and then with little variations depending on the time and the place. Sometimes we have shorter sets, sometimes there's a strict curfew and not. But yeah, so there's always some surprises thrown in to sum it up.
Got it. So, in other words, they keep you on your toes. You always have to learn new music being in Megadeth.
Yeah, and you know what? It's really fun. As a fan of the band from many, many years ago, the first album I bought was Peace Sells, the second album. So the band's second album. So for me, it's always fun to go back and dig through the catalog and learn something from any period because there's gems on every record.
Right. So you're almost a decade into Megadeth now. When did you kind of realize that it wasn't just one tour, that you might be coming back?
Well, it was about a weekend when Dave took me aside, and at the time I was playing drums and Soilwork. I'd been with him for about 12 years, and Dave took me aside and said to me, "So when are you telling the Soilwork guys you're my drummer now?" So that's when I knew.
Wow. So for you to come into Megadeth, was it a traditional audition process, or did they know your work from Soilwork and went, "That's the guy"?
It wasn't traditional in the sense that I didn't have to submit anything or, spend time with the guys. I was on tour with Soilwork when I got a call from management saying that they wanted to speak to me. And so a few days later, Dave and I spoke for about maybe 5-10 minutes on the phone. He asked me some questions. He had watched some videos of me online, and several people in the camp had recommended me. And what was happening is that they asked me to fill in for some shows where their drummer at the time wasn't available. And so
Sure.
I figured, I found a replacement for Soilwork because there were a few overlapping shows. So I found Bastian, who's now the permanent drummer in Soilwork, stepped in. And I said, let's see how it goes. I learned what they asked me to learn. We did one rehearsal prior to the first show, which was Rock on the Range Festival in Columbus, Ohio at the time, which was like kind of a big show. Like my first show with Megadeth was in front of like 40,000 people.
Right.
So that was a bit stressful, but basically it was just straight in. I think people told him, what I can do, and he watched some videos, and so there wasn't any need for a real audition.
Got it. So Soilwork is another band where some of the members are in North America and the other members are in Europe, just like Megadeth. When did you officially move to the States or start spending more of your time in the States than Europe?
That actually happened in 2006 because I met my now wife while I was touring the States. And so at one point I just decided, like since I already speak English, because I learned to speak English with touring and growing up, and actually lived briefly in the States as a kid. So I was like, it makes more sense for me to just go there. My wife, Hannah, was already living in LA at the time. So I just moved over there and stayed there. And yeah, it became a bit interesting there with Soilwork for a bit while I was sorting out my immigration status, but eventually it all worked out. So yeah, I've been here now for almost 20 years.
Are you still an LA-based person? I ask for a reason.
Yes, I am.
Okay, because it seems like everyone in metal moved from LA to either Vegas or Nashville.
Yeah, there was some people doing that for sure, and then people start seeing some names doing it, and then it becomes this like, oh, everybody's moving, but the LA scene is still very active, and there's still a lot of people there and a lot of shows happening, and it's just a great place to live. I really love it.
Well, besides the success of this tour, the new Megadeth headphones, etc., I read a great thing about you, the donation that you helped cultivate for Savage Land rather, €1 million. How long did you have to keep that a secret for?
For a little bit because yeah, that was a Hellfest thing. So to sum it up, Savage Lands is basically a nonprofit organization, non-governmental, and what we're trying to do and what we're doing is reforesting and trying to preserve land in Costa Rica because like many places, that are a little bit more accessible financially, a lot of wealthy people are buying parcels of land there to put a
Sure.
house, which is normal, and a lot of land has recently become accessible there. And so, we're trying to show them that, like, hey, if you're going to do that, which is going to happen, nobody can stop that. Nobody wants to stop that. Please preserve as much of the wild forest as you can because it's getting cut down left and right. And soon enough, there will be no more room for the howler monkeys and all the other endemic animals and fauna and flora there. So we're helping them, keep up a parcel of their land to keep it wild, and it actually gives the land more value as well. So there's, it's a double win in a sense. And
So you,
and
yeah.
so Helpest has partnered with us because originally the guy that I started the foundation with, he's French. He's from back when I lived in France. We had a band together. A really great guy named Sylvain de Mercastel, and he managed to get Hellfest on board, and Hellfest pledged €1 million over 5 years to help us. We have a huge stand there this year, the band, because it's also a band playing on the main stage. So lots of musicians contributing, to many people to name, but we've just had tons of support. So we've achieved a lot of things over 2 years.
Yeah, you basically break a lot of the stereotypes for a metal drummer, not only with that work that we just talked about, but being a vegan, etc. So I'm sure every day of every tour, a lot of people are just kind of surprised about you, how you're hitting things so hard on stage. You're kind of a tender human being off the stage.
Yeah, I think I get all my anger and aggression out in the music, and then the rest of the time I can be peaceful. I guess it's better that way. But I grew up in a very caring and loving family, and I was taught compassion and just care for a living creature since I was young. I was always around cats and animals, and my parents were always very nice about all that stuff. So I guess it's not really surprising if you look at that.
Well, I have two quick questions and then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
And they have nothing to do with how successful you are or how great the Destroy All Enemies tour are going. We're going to keep saying those things so the SEO picks up and the clickbait happens. Uh,
Sounds good.
the first one is, how did you get good at travel? And by that I mean I was just away from home for 4 or 5 days and I need 3 days to recover. But that's not an option for you at this point in time. You're seemingly on the road more than not these days. How did your body adapt to travel? Do you have like routines and stretches and wellness things that you have to do?
These days, yes, I do a lot of stretching and yoga. Not every day, but almost every day. I do some fitness, some workouts. It's mostly just so that I'm going to be in shape for the show and that I can, give it my all without hurting myself or without getting too exhausted. That being said, the beginning of a tour is always going to be a little bit brutal because you always need that first week to kind of acclimatize and, get used to playing the whole show again, get used to playing 90 minutes of pretty much uninterrupted metal, at 100%. So it's always a little bit of adapting, but once you're kind of in the water, it starts getting easier over time. Like now we're, like you said, 3 weeks in. It's, my body's used to it now. So now it's just about keeping it up. But of course, when I was younger, I was like everybody on tour, partying, drinking. Nowadays I haven't been drinking for like almost 20 years now. I live pretty clean, and just because I feel better that way, my body feels better, my mind feels better. I can be present every day and just give every show the best I can.
So harkening back, it's the happiest, clean living people playing kind of the angriest music.
In some way, I think the thing with metal music, the angriness or the anger or the aggressiveness of it, it resonated with me as a teenager because we all go through that kind
Too.
of angsty phase, right? Figuring out the world, So it really resonated with me. Not only metal, also rap and hip hop and
Yes.
electronic music. There's all kinds of different things I listened to that kind of got me through that phase of kind of figuring things out. So, but I think then ultimately it sticks with you for the love of the music because the musicianship, and just the sheer power and energy of it. So I don't see it so much as like necessarily aggression in the sense of like it's aggressive towards anyone. It's more like we're expressing this energy that's in all of us because in the end we're all the same.
Yeah. The next time I interview you, I'm going to ask you about the Public Enemy and Run DMC fandom of the olden days. But the
Love it.
last thing, so I like to find out anytime I speak to an influential musician, and I'm calling you an influential musician based on the world tours, the endorsements, the dozens of records you played on, etc. So take the compliments.
Thank you.
Anytime I speak to an influential musician from Europe of a certain age, I like to find out how they found out about Van Halen. Because here in the States, it was on MTV and Top 40 radio all the time. But in Europe, I get the impression that they were a one or two hit kind of band. It was like Jump was a hit and then not really a hit. Am I wrong about that? Or did you grow up a Van Halen fan?
No, I think you're very spot on with that. And I think Jump is how I heard them on the radio because as a kid and a young teenager, the radio was on a lot in my house. And I was always like, at the time it was cassettes and I was always taping songs I liked. And so I think Jump, Crazy Nights by Kiss, like Wasted Years, Maiden, Bon Jovi, Europe, you name it, like all those bands, which were like the early metal stuff that I enjoyed was because they had hits, because there was really no other way. And as much as my dad was a rock and roll guy and he brought home a lot of cool stuff, he wasn't necessarily leaning into that stuff until I became a fan. Once I started listening to bands like Megadeth and Slayer and then all the heavier stuff, then my dad started like getting interested in that too. And he'd be like, hey, can you give me that Hypocrisy album? I really like that one, stuff like that. So he was always very much into it with me. But yeah, to answer your question, Van Halen, obviously Dutch expats, amazing guys. I actually, when Eddie passed, my wife and I went to Pasadena to visit kind of the shrine that a lot of fans had built up around the house where the brothers grew up. And that was really nice, really nice to see. We got a glimpse of the garage where the first practices happened. So that was pretty cool, rest in peace.
And every night you're playing on stage with David Lee Roth's former bass player. So what a small world.
I know, right? How much better does it get? And
Well,
Sammy Hagar's.
Exactly. Well, hey, thank you so much for the years of great art. Looking forward to the Jones Beach show and keep up the great work, Dirk.
Thank you so much, Darren. Take care, man.
Paltrocast.